Hey, I'm Ron Drotos from keyboardimprov.com, and welcome to our journey through the real book number 204, which is the great Billie Holiday classic, Lady Sings the Blues. She co-wrote this with the great pianist Herbie Nichols in the 50s, and just like every lesson in this series, this is about learning the tunes with some of the historical knowledge, understanding the culture that produced it as best we can from the distance of history, and also to get sort of under the skin, so to speak, of the music. Not just notes on a page, but where is it coming from? How has it been performed before? What can we do with it? So that we can really be part of the jazz tradition. That's what this is about. So welcome, going through the real book in order, and just past the halfway mark a few weeks ago. One a week, usually on Fridays, and it's an 8-year project. So I'm loving it, and thanks for being here. So Lady Sings the Blues. I remember when I was maybe a freshman in college, maybe 18 years old, 19 years old, bought a Billie Holiday Greatest Hits album or something, and this was the first song on it. And boy, I was transported to a different world. This is not a typical jam session tune. You're not going to walk into an instrumental jam session and say, hey, let's play Lady Sings the Blues. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do it. It's a wonderful tune. It would be more slower than that, a ballad. But it's most often done with vocalists. I've actually only played this tune during a couple of Billie Holiday tributes that I put together at dinner theaters where we'd bring in a jazz show and we'd do a tribute to Billie Holiday, or cabaret settings. Not so much in straight ahead jazz settings, although it sounds great. Billie Holiday was one of the greatest jazz singers, and this was her song. But she also had an element of sort of showbiz, right? In that she was presenting herself as an act, as an entertainer as well. That's the 50s. Jazz and pop music was still together a lot more than it is now, which is pretty much non-existent now. But back then, you might even have an instrumental jazz trio on But Not For Me by Ahmad Jamal and his trio, and that would hit the pop charts. Or my teacher, Billy Taylor. Remember one time I got one of his old albums in a secondhand store, and I called him up. I said, I love it, but all the tunes are 3.5 minutes long. Why didn't you guys stretch out more? And he said, Ron, don't forget, we were looking for radio play. We could get on the FM radio stations with a 3.5 minute instrumental jazz piece. And so Billie Holiday was right in there as well, making a name for herself with the general public, not just jazz aficionados. And Lady Sings the Blues is a mature work of hers. It doesn't have all of the youthful optimism of her 1930s recordings with Teddy Wilson and Lester Young, but and so maybe it's even more multi-layered. It's not necessarily all tragic either, though, because she's bringing just many emotions to the forefront. Lady sings the blues. Lady is sad. Her nickname was Lady Day, Billie Holiday. I got the chance to work with a friend of hers in the early 90s named Joyce Bryant, who was a wonderful jazz singer. And I asked her once, I said, she told me about Billie Holiday, and I said, she changed the melodies to a lot of standards, like All of Me. Instead of going, all of me, she just went, all of me, or in a lower key even. And but just on one note, or she got some of that from her influences like Bessie Smith and Louis Armstrong. But I asked Joyce, I said, Joyce, did she have a small vocal range that she was fitting the tunes into? And Joyce said yes, and she was terrified that anybody would find out at the time. So she made it into her style. She took her limitation vocally, with not a huge high or low range, and she made it into her style, which was unique. So I think that's a good lesson for us too. The tune, it's not a typical tune. I mean, it is AABA. It's a ballad, but it has a big flair for the dramatic in it. I find that I can bring some of my Broadway musical theater experience to this, maybe even more than on some other tunes. It starts out with 4 measures of an F minor 7th chord, where the 5th goes up by a half step to the sharp 5, and then the 6th, and then the minor seventh. It almost sounds like those soundtrack scores to the James Bond movies where it goes, and then it goes back down. In this case, it keeps going up, and it's, there it is. It's in the melody. And then all of a sudden it just gets major, and it's like, whoa, this beautiful euphoric feeling. You know, that's that emotional layering I was talking about. And then it gets very jazzy. And then back to the minor. So this A section has three distinct sections. This brooding, moody minor thing with that ascending chromatic line. And then, boy, it's like the clouds just part and the sun comes out, or at least this beautiful feeling. And then very torch song, jazzy, like Harold Arlen or Duke Ellington there. And then for the bridge, it's basically a dominant seventh chord, and you could get jazzy, or bluesy rather. You could bring some of that in. Go back to some down-home blues, or it could get modal. Wide open in terms of interpretation, but those are the basic elements. And then it's A-A-B-A, so after the bridge, the last A comes back in. Wonderful tune. I invite you to listen to Billie Holiday do it. You can't really get the essence of the tune just from playing this from the lead sheet. Really, probably any tune in the jazz tradition. You know, there's an aural, both O-R-A-L, in that things are passed from one generation to the next, spoken and by teaching. And also A-U-R-A-L, in that listening. It goes without saying, it's a big part of any tradition. And maybe underappreciated in jazz these days with all the overabundance of theory we're getting, right? Using our ear, our instincts. Sometimes when you're improvising, I think of it as improvising by ear and instinct and seeing where it takes us. And it might be a little different than our theoretical knowledge. So I'm going to start out with introduction based on the first four measures, playing around with this F minor-ish kind of thing, and then seeing where it takes us today. Whew, whoa, yeah, I didn't want to end that. I don't know if you could tell, but and some of the drama that I've had in terms of dramatic aspect of music playing. I used to play a lot of Broadway shows and worked with a lot of jazz singers who were working on Broadway and could bring a dramatic emphasis to the music in a way that Billie Holiday did, you know, with special lighting or being on stage and doing a stage presentation of a song. And I didn't want to let go. It was almost like the heartbeat at the end. That just went with that whole world of sound she created on these kind of tunes. So in a way, Billie Holiday's recording is inviting us to enter that as well. And it's not just the notes on the page, it's the oral tradition, both O-R-A-L, being passed down word of mouth and by teachers to students over the years, and then also A-U-R-A-L, listening and absorbing, not just notes on a page. Thank you so much for being here. If I can help you with Zoom lessons or Skype, I'd love to get you to that next level. I have a video course at keyboardimprov.com, 360, 70, 80 lessons there. Just take you step by step to get you playing with fluency, and good luck with your playing. I really appreciate you being here, and see you next week in the next video.